for this prior to going on vacation, which required me to be on an airplane for, 15 hours round trip.
So while you're on that airplane, were you thinking about fires?
I was ignoring things a lot.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
I had to. I finally got it through my head. I was like, wait. This is the same thing you do when you swim in the ocean. Mm-hmm. There are sharks in the ocean. Yeah. There just aren't any sharks there at the moment, so you're fine.
I, too, was on an airplane after having done some research for this episode, and I was sitting in the window seat, and I turned to my boyfriend, and I said, does it make you nervous that there's something in between those window panes? Because there was like a piece of junk in there. And it was like, how did it get in there? Does it make you nervous?
Yeah.
It makes me nervous.
Yeah, I was doing a little research for this and various random Googles to try to find stuff out. And I found all these advisories out there from like the FAA and stuff like that. It's like, you got to go, like this particular one, I was looking into oxygen generators. And it's like, you got to go visually inspect every oxygen generator and every 747 in the entire fleet, visually inspect it.
And we know that doesn't actually happen.
Yeah, probably not. But apparently some defective ones out there. So it's like, and something like a 747 is such a huge, complex machine. So many things to go wrong.
Yeah.
That I just don't think about it.
As we're going to talk about in just 1 second.
We are. So let's get back to SAA Flight 295.
Yeah.
This flight, as we've already sort of given away, went down. Mm-hmm. It went down and it killed all 140 passengers and 19 crew members. And then, of course, because it's a international event when an airplane goes down, there was a giant investigation, which spawned. There was a whole bunch of theories that spawned out before the investigation was even started, and even more that came out after the fact.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
It
Yes,
does, doesn't it?
Really does. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the plane itself.
Yeah.
South African Airways Flight 295 was a Boeing 747-244B Combi. The name of the plane was the Helderberg. I didn't know that.
I don't know that every airline names its airplanes. I don't think they do, but apparently SAA does.
I found out it's actually kind of a common thing, which was surprising to me.
So that was the actual name of the plane?
Yes, that's what they named the plane.
Mm-hmm. Why did they name it Fifi?
Because that's just not cool enough.
Maybe the other ones were. It was already taken.
There's a Fifi and a Fido.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The registration for the plane was ZS-SAS, serial number 22171.
Okay.
So we are going to start our story on the 27th of November, 1987. The aircraft is in Chiang Kai-shek International Airport, which is in Taipei, Taiwan. The flight was scheduled to go from Taipei to Johannesburg. Mm-hmm. Johannesburg or Johannesburg? I've heard it both ways.
I think it's Johannesburg, but I'm not 100% sure.
To Johannesburg. So this is a long flight.
Mm-hmm. Over a long stretch of
Over a long stretch of water. It was expected to make one stop, and that was going to be on the island of Mauritius, which is in the Indian Ocean. It's 500 miles away from Madagascar, which is 800 kilometers.
Yeah.
So everything seems normal. The plane's delayed. They can't take off on schedule. They're delayed an hour and a half because of thunderstorms. While they're held on the tarmac, the local customs decides to run a surprise inspection, check out the cargo.
Now, do you know, was that something they just decided to do a lot on that day, or was this an isolated incident?
I never found anything that said, other than it was just, hey, you're here, we might as well check you out, just because we can.
Yeah, I think that probably was it, especially since they were just sort of sitting around for an extra hour and a half.
Yeah.
So why not do a little surprise inspection of
so
them?
I was just wondering if they were, presumably there were other planes that were also delayed for a while.
Yeah,
I think this is just luck of the draw.
It could be luck of the draw. It could actually be because they were South African, and then because there was an embargo, they decided, these guys have a motive to smuggle stuff.
That's true.
Yeah, so maybe that was it too. I don't know.
Yeah, it is in... it's 1987, apartheid is still a thing. Mm-hmm. Still not a very popular country, South Africa. So they get checked, and lo and behold, everything that's on the manifest is accounted for. There's nothing out of place. So they're hunky-dory, and they go ahead and tell them that when they're able to leave, they're welcome to leave.
Great.
We should stop here, though, because there is an important bit of this, which is when I described the plane, I had mentioned that was a 747-244B Combi.
Yeah, what is that?
Combi.
Stands for combination.
Oh.
Yeah,
So-
there you go.
Okay, that doesn't actually clarify
No, it doesn't.
anything.
It
Sorry.
really doesn't. It's something that some airlines do that can work in their favor, especially in this situation. What it is, so you've got the main deck of a plane,
Yeah.
and usually it's full of seats. Except that if you're running a route that doesn't normally book an entire plane, this is a great plane to have because it doesn't have seats in the rear portion of the plane, and you can remove or add back seats as you need them, and the bulkhead and the galley move forward and back to screen that off from your passengers.
Yeah.
So the Combi, this particular one, could hold anywhere from 6 to 12 pallets.
Okay.
At this time,
In the back,
In the back.
Okay.
Yeah. So where normally the bathrooms are in the back of the plane, that area.
Okay.
At this time, it had 6 pallets back there.
So a smaller configuration, but it's a pretty handy idea. Actually, Boeing made a similar version of the 727 also. Similarly, it was convertible. You could pull out the seats and
Right.
have cargo instead.
Yep.
It's
and
it's a
seats on
great
airplanes
idea.
are fully adjustable. If you've been on an airplane recently and you look down where your seat attaches, it attaches to a track.
Yep.
So seats are completely movable because
why-
that's how they've eliminated the knee room.
Yeah,
that
they
you
just
have to
slide
pay for
them
now.
up. They just push
They've
them all up back to back and then pull them about an inch back.
Exactly.
And they're like, "That's fine. Yeah, no, that's fine.
You're comfortable.
You're good."
Have you seen some of the new seating? There was a proposed seating arrangement that came out not too long ago, like 6 months ago.
I think we posted this.
That's the one
On
where you're
Facebook.
sitting, and then there's a guy that's like half a level up from you, facing you, and your sort of face is in his crotch. He's sitting in it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
we could
Yeah.
pack even more people onto the planes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to upgrade to the area that's got 2 more inches. So you can't just go ahead and say, "I'll sit on the emergency aisle because I'm a good guy." No, you have to pay for that because the
Yeah,
emergency
so-
aisle gets more room.
Yeah, actually, on the flight I was just on, simultaneously, it was like 5 times as much to reserve the seats for the emergency row, which is kind of like, why would you do that? Why would you want, but okay, whatever.
Really?
It was.
Really?
And then the tray tables, my phone is actually bigger than the tray, like actually like longer. Like I
Deeper?
put my phone on it, and it was too deep for the thing. So that's the state of airline travel in America. I suspect everywhere. But
I guess
Got
it's been a few years since I caught a flight. The last flight I caught was to Los Angeles, and I was seated on the emergency aisle, and they didn't charge me extra. And
They do now.
They do now.
They
Wow.
do now.
When
Certain
did that
airlines,
start?
I
So
guess
every
some
airline
airlines don't do
basically
that.
does. But anyway, we're off track.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
totally off track.
Let's get back to the Combi.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing: is that we're talking about the fact that it's got that area in the rear that they can put cargo, and that's advantageous for slow routes. This route was, and a lot of routes actually for South African Airways were kind of bad at the time because, as we said,
Weird.
it was apartheid. Everybody hated them.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of countries hated them. There was embargoes, and one of the things that countries would do is they would say, "Hey, you can't fly through our airspace."
Yeah.
So let's give an example. Let's say you're going to go from what is it? It's Cape Town,
Cape Town.
and you're going to go to London. Now the simple answer is to fly in a straight line,
Yeah,
essentially,
can't quite do
to
that,
London.
yeah.
But you can't do that. They had to fly over the ocean around the entire continent and then go to England. So it was a huge damper on business.
Yeah. Or
So
if you
these
wanted to
kind of
like
planes
say,
were good.
yeah, if you wanted to fly from Cape Town to Jerusalem, you had to fly at a circle and then like say go to maybe Paris, maybe Athens, and then on to Israel, that kind of thing. But yeah, it was definitely a long way around.
Yeah, no. So it was not a good thing, and they actually had 2 of these planes. So this was one of the 2 that they had at
Yeah,
the time.
Combis.
Yeah, so
Combis.
they had it in that configuration where there was less seating and there was. You
Correct.
said there were 12 pallets in the back.
6
this
to
one?
12 is what it was capable of carrying.
And
This
on this
flight
one?
had 6.
Okay.
Flight takes off. Everything appears normal. Really, everything went fine for about the first 9.5 hours. If you
And
don't,
how long's the flight really?
it was. I think it was supposed to take 11 hours
Okay,
to get to
so for
Mauritius.
the
To get to
majority.
Mauritius,
Oh.
and then they were going to bounce on from there.
Okay.
So it's a long, long flight.
Yeah, sounds pretty tedious.
The thing that I didn't realize, and I don't know that a lot of people realize, is that planes are constantly checking in at waypoints.
Yeah.
And as they were doing their flight and they were checking in at every waypoint, everything is fine. Right up until about the 9.5 hour mark. At 11:48 p.m. UTC, which is Universal Time Coordinated, which equates to, for Mauritius, it was 3:48 a.m. in the morning, local time. The flight contacted the control tower, and they said that they had smoke on board and that they were descending, per their guidelines, to 14,000 feet.
Okay.
We know this because of the voice data recorder that was on the plane, and of
That
course,
was found eventually.
that was eventually found, yes. And also we have the tapes from the control tower that they were speaking to. In the conversation, the flight requests and is granted full emergency landing status, which means where do you want to land?
Yeah.
Pick your runway.
Yeah.
We'll give it
clear
to you.
Yeah.
And so they did that. Then they asked where they were. And this is a weird thing, is that there's a bit of a mix-up in the communication because the signal wasn't all that great. The audio was pretty poor. But the flight, when asked, said that they were 65 miles.
Yeah.
Now,
Which
the
usually
tower...
means...
Well, the tower took that to mean they were 65 miles out from the tower. Instead, it turns out what the guys on the plane were saying is that they were 65 miles away from a waypoint, and that waypoint is, I'm just going to spell it because I can't even pronounce it, Xagal.
Zoggle? Zoggle.
Zoggle.
Maybe.
Or Zoggle.
Waypoint Zoggle.
Or Ziggle.
So they had passed that waypoint 65 miles ago, was what it was? Or they were 65 miles away from even hitting that waypoint. Do you know?
I'm never quite sure because
if it's worded this way, you don't.
I don't know. All I know is that it turns out they were actually 145 miles away from the actual airport.
Okay.
So they were way farther out to sea than anybody expected them to be.
Which